Good morning.
I'm just going to take a minute here and I'm going to share some energies with you guys. Oh, thank you all so much for being here. Dina and I went to this thing in Fort Lauderdale last week and I saw this beautiful woman. Her name is Gabby Bernstein. I'm going to put this down. Is this how I put it down? No, I want to lower this. You can tell I've been a rock star a long time. I don't know how to work a mic stand. Okay, that's better. Now I don't have to look over it to see you. Anyways, one of the things that she said when she got up there that really touched me was, I honor you. I honor you in whatever belief you're here in this morning. I honor that too. And one of the things that Ernest talks about is that we honor all spiritual paths, all spiritual beliefs, all religions, and that all paths, spiritual paths lead to God. And I had to really think about that. Do I? Do I honor all paths, or do I only honor the paths that I'm comfortable in? And somebody who is very, very dear to my heart, and I don't share the same views. And we've recently begun talking about that, and it's uncomfortable. For each of us, it's very uncomfortable. So when the opportunity to speak came, and I knew I wanted to speak on faith, and I wanted to speak on humility, and the other reason for that is, of course, it has to be personal. I'm used to speaking from my heart. I'm not used to having to study for it and put things together. So it was actually kind of difficult. And a couple months ago, I went to this women's retreat, and in it, we discussed, our blocks, what's keeping me from God and from my true nature. And when we entered, and I thought, I wonder what mine's going to be. And this little voice said, pride. And I was like, maybe it'll be lust or something, cool, I can work with. And but it wasn't. After a few days, it absolutely was pride. And it's, this pendulum of pride swings wide. And I can be cocky, and there's spiritual pride, and but then there's pride in being better than you, and there's pride in being less than you. There's pride in my victimhood, and that pendulum swings wide. In the law of polarity, each is necessary to the other. So if I'm the asset to pride is humility. And so I had to start looking at that. So this just works right now. This was such an appropriate. So the other thing is when I sat down and started getting prepared for this, it was all my thoughts and my ideas. I had some pretty good messages that I wanted to share with people, and but every time I would try to talk it out, I couldn't do it. It was gone. I couldn't grasp it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I had to sit down with the book. I sat down with Ernest, right? Because that's who brought this together. And Ernest didn't have a lot of original thought as much as he took the things that are the same. What is the same in all these religions and these spiritual practices? What is the core of it? What is the philosophy and what is the science? And he says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is a mental attitude, so inwardly embodied that the mind can no longer deny it. Faith is complete when it is both a conscious and subjective acceptance. Faith may be consciously generated. In spiritual terminology, faith means a belief in the presence of an invisible principle and law which directly and specifically responds to us. Thy faith has made us whole. It was given to me in the analogy that we have to believe before we have the faith. And so if I moved into a new town and I want to find a baker, and I've met my neighbor and I like her, so I'm going to respect what she says. So I ask her, hey, where's the best bakery in town? And she says, try this one. I'm going there in the belief that this is going to be the best one. And then I go and I taste what they create, and it's incredible. And when I go back, I'm going back in the faith that it is going to be as good. So it's a belief to come to the faith, but it's in experiencing the miracles and what this is about that I truly gain the faith. And even in that, my faith wavers. And that's why it says that faith may be consciously generated. When I start to waver, I can ask for it. And if I ask for it, I'll receive it. I need water. And humility, and I thought this was kind of funny. When I first started looking, I couldn't just find humility, but I found, he wrote, suitable humility, simplicity, and genuineness. These attributes keep one from being overambitious, pride, and too aggressive, pride. True humility does not mean self-abasement, and self-abasement is to reduce or lower, as in rank or reputation. I'm learning a dictionary is a beautiful thing to hold with me when I'm studying. So true humility does not mean that I'm less than. It doesn't mean that I'm lower than. Rather, the attitude which Emerson tells us is willing to get its bloated nothingness out of the way of divine circuits. It's an intelligent recognition that the whole is greater than any one of its parts. I don't know if there's any artists in here, but the Gestalt theory, you know, the sum of the part, that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And the analogy in that one that I like is if I go to the ocean, which I was there last week, and I take a cup, and I get this ocean in this cup, I have all the particles of the ocean. It's still the ocean, but it lacks the power. If it connects back with the ocean, it's connected back to that power. And so in that sense, and you know, what I'm saying up here is not, I'm not coming up with anything original, except maybe this one. When in that analogy, what I realize is that if this is a particle of an ocean, then I'm a particle of God. I'm a God particle. And when I connect to my source, then I have that power behind me. But then we get back into the pride, and I start thinking that I can direct it, and I can control it, and I can, you know, if I make a wish, it's going to come true. The law of attraction is the one that's, you know, obviously got me into the spiritual laws, because if you tell me that I can ask for it and I'm going to get it, I'm aboard. I'm all aboard. Except, unfortunately, I don't always know what's the best for me. And I certainly don't know what's the best for you. But what I do know is when I ask, I receive. And the other thing in that is oftentimes I find that the law of attraction is the one that we discuss the most. How do I get money? How do I get a relationship? How do I get the job, the car? How do I make all of my dreams come true? Where do I find these things? How do I tap into these things? But on the other end of that is then where's God's will? And where does this fit in science of mind? So this was a beautiful, truly a beautiful research for me. And what I know is that when I ask, I receive. And one day I'm sitting there, I was actually, I think I was either with Beth or Janae when it happened. I opened my book, and on page 550 there's a prayer that Ernest wrote.